Sonic universe. But this time it's Knuckles' turn to take the spotlight for the other add-on failure on the Sega Mega Drive, apart from the Mega CD, the Sega 32X. It was a last attempt from Sega to compete with their competition with Nintendo. Despite the fact that the 16-bit era's coming to an end, even the likes of the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 are around the corner. But to rub the salt on Sega's wounds, that the SEGA Saturn was already released in Japan before the Sega 32X bit the dust. And because of that, it was a failure with only 40 games. But I'm going to look at one of those games that is considered to be the best, I guess. And that game is Knuckles Chaotix. But hey, I guess Sega wanted to release a Sonic game for the system. Because they released Sonic CD for the Mega CD, why not do the same for the 32X? Now that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be a masterpiece. Now if you see my Sonic CD video, I said that the game isn't as good as people think it is. Though I doubt that this game's going to be the best thing in the world, and that we've never seen a re-release of this game even when it came out. Now this game's only available on the Sega 32X, so that means you're going to have to go out and buy a Sega Mega Drive, then buy the 32X and a copy of this game. But if you're going to do that, expect to pay a premium for them. I mean, god damn. Or alternatively, you can just emulate it, which is exactly how I played the game for this video, which is exactly what I did for the Super Mario Bros. 2 video. Now, I never owned a 32X as a kid, or just like the Mega CD, though I did heard of this game in my childhood, and I have played this game thanks to emulation, played for a few minutes and then put it down straight after, until now. So with all that said, let's take a look at Knuckles Chaotix for the Sega 32X, released in 1995. So then, this started out as a Mega Drive game named Sonic Crackers. Now you can play this ROM if you know where to look, but you shouldn't bother because there is barely anything here. I mean, look at the startup screen, it looks like an old 70s console game that we never got. Now in the game you control Sonic with tails. Is this a sort of a rubber band mechanic where you attach to each other at all times, and a case of arms getting detached from the actual body? What the fuck is going on there? I hope they're okay after all this. But on a serious note, this does have a similar formula to the previous game, so characters control exactly like they have before. But you are under a 3-minute time limit till the stage straight out ends. So after that, you are taken to this isometric style hub world where you pretty much mess around till you had enough. But as we know, the isometric concept wouldn't be a thing till Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, that was released a year later. So I guess like Sonic CD, this game is being developed by a B team to work on this, while the A team works on the big project, and I couldn't wait how that turns out due to the time I get to the 3D games. Now I'm not sure exactly why Sega dumped Sonic out of the spotlight and had Knuckles the torch. So according to the former Sega of America CEO Tom Kalinske, stated that the idea was to release Knuckles Chaotix for the Mega Drive successor, the SEGA Saturn, but then decided to move to the dying 32X, as it would not be ready for Saturn's launch as it was, and I quote, too big, taking too long to develop, it was over budgeted and was behind schedule. So long story short, Sega have absolutely no faith in this whatsoever. So what we're going to do, instead of releasing it for the next major console, we're going to put it on a dying console just to say fuck it. We're going to put a Sonic game in this just to squeeze every last drop of this system. Of course that doesn't mean this game's going to be a car crash. Oh hell no, it could be good in its own right. Maybe another hidden gem I can find. Maybe just like Sonic CD, that this game's been developed by a B team while the A team works on their main project. Maybe it's just to say that we don't find this project as good as our main project that we're working on. So, is that the case? Well, let's take a look. So this game takes place on a mysterious island called Neutrogic High Zone. So Knuckles goes there to investigate, and I have no idea who's watching the Master Emerald while Knuckles is absent. So Knuckles discovered that Dr. Robotnik is up to no good again, and assisted by the returning Metal Sonic. the Doctor held captive a few new characters like Espio the Chameleon, Vector the Crocodile, Charmy the Bee, and finally Mighty the Armadillo. Oh, and along with Heavy and Bomb. They're just there. Now, you may have heard of these guys if you got into the series thanks to Sonic Heroes, but no, this is the game where they made their debut. And also, these guys are an old concept of Sonic the Hedgehog until we all know it was all scrapped. While Robotnik has held these guys captive, he's also after the 6 Chaos Rings, so not Chaos Emeralds this time around. So the Doctor's plan is the same as before, using the ring's power to take over the world. So Knuckles alongside Team Chaotix to stop the evil scientist once and for all. So you control whatever pair of Chaotix team to travel each zone across the island through. Like every traditional 2D Sonic game, now there are 5 zones in this game, not counting the intro stage. So this game actually has less zones than Sonic 1, even without counting the final zone, and so that means this game is really short. Well, you may think that, but actually these zones don't have 2 or 3 acts in each zone, but actually 5 acts per zone this time around, and these levels are not that very long with a couple of exceptions. Well, this time you don't play these zones in order, they actually select them at random for you and there you go, you head to that zone. Which I find strange as every Sonic game lets you complete each act until you move on to the next zone. But I feel the case of this game, most of these levels feel exactly the same. I mean, aesthetically they are different, but the level design in most of these feel like they have the same set pieces every time, like you run through a couple of half loops there, and once most of these levels are like that, it can become stale and boring. The only exception being Amazing Arena, where you have to activate these clocks in each act to proceed with the level. Not even the bosses are much better. Much like the other levels, they're pretty brain dead and they're over before you know it. I mean, I like the animated intro before the boss begins. That's about it. Now, to give the game a little bit of credit, there are hidden giant rings and a few hidden walls in the level where it takes you to not the special stages, but to a bonus stage where you fall down and collecting rings and collect power-ups until you chose to exit out. But to get into the special stages is exactly how Sonic 1 is handled by ending the level with over 50 rings and jumping the giant ring. Once again, the special stages are completely different from previous games. It's a combination between Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 special stages where you just run through this pipe stream level design where you require the amount of blue spheres to collect. Once you cross the finish line, if you didn't get the amount of blue spheres, the stage doesn't straight out end. You can keep going if you have enough rings to last, or you just fall off. The amount of rings you have in the special stages are determined of how many you finish in the level, so really, this is really interesting and very unique, giving rings some form of purpose. So after completing the special stages, you are rewarded with one of the 6 Chaos Rings, so not 7 this time around, but you don't get a super form of any kind. What disappointed me is that none of the elemental shields from Sonic 3 did not make a return here, but the normal shields back from the first 2 games, and I have to say most of the power-ups are very underwhelming. First we have monitors that grows you big, and the ones that makes you shrink. The growth power-up, which besides nearly filling up the screen, is that your character jumps higher. That's about it. The small size is a complete opposite besides where you shrink size, but your jump is so piss poor that you have to rely on your climbing. This blue ring capsule you might recognise from Sonic Mania. It saves the amount of rings you currently have, and once you get hit you can get most of them back, which is neat, I guess. Then you have different character specific monitor, which switches you to a different partner that you didn't pick for a period of time. You have the character swap monitor, which is exactly what it sounds like, but again, it's only for a period of time. Then after that, we have the usual speed shoes and invincibility, work just as they did before, so not much to say here. So not much to shout about in terms of what the game offers, and overall it's more of a big meh. They just have not added much into the game that previous games did. Now time for the real talking point is its gameplay mechanics. I should start with the general controls. Now, it doesn't feel exactly like previous games, other than that, everything else still feels pretty good. In fact, I should talk about each characters. So in Knuckles' Chaotix, after completing the intro stage with Knuckles, you can select either our main star, Knuckles, Mighty, Espio, Charmy, and Vector. Now this isn't like Sonic 3 where each characters have their own story to tell. No, they all have the same goal. Now first Knuckles, he plays like how he did in Sonic 3, so he can glide and climb up walls like he normally does, so not much for me to say. Mighty's only ability is that he can wall jump. Now you can get some really good distance with this. Espio, again, the only thing about him is that he can run up walls, so he may be a better option at getting through these levels. Charmy, despite being the tiniest playable character in history, he can actually do infinite flight. And he can do this little dash attack, which almost kind of make the game broken. Finally, Vector has an air dash, and he can also climb up walls. Let me see. Hey Google, can crocodiles climb walls? Oh, it turns out they can. Well, that's pretty scary. Now, I haven't mentioned Heavy and Bomb is because they're both only playable as your partners in crime. Heavy is slow on the ground, but he has a brilliant offensive options as he can hit by anything, so he's completely invincible. So you can carry him and just run through like you don't give a shit. Bomb, on the other hand, make sure you reset the game when you pick him. I mean, he has nothing special, and once he gets hit, you lose rings as well. And that actually kind of reminds me of the explosive white mouse from Tom and Jerry. Anyway, these guys in the end have nothing much to shout about. But that now gets us to the real deal of Knuckles' Chaotix, is the team-up gimmick. Now, whatever character you choose, you are forever tagged to your partner whatever this little crane game picks for you. So therefore, you are tethered to your partner and you're stuck together with them no matter where you go. Now in Sonic 2 and 3, when you have Tails on your side and when you're off-screen him, he respawns. Here, oh no, you have to be paired with them at all times. Now you can command them with a push of the button, like you can hold your partner in place to help you gain speed, or for very rare puzzles where you have to stand in specific places. Or you can grab them and throw them wherever you aim, kinda like throwing the shell from the Mario games. After that, it's more about if the game's control are with you or against you. Now the partner AI behaves like Tails from previous games, where he responds a half a second of what button you have input while playing. Now you have a tutorial giving you the idea of how the gameplay mechanics work, like if you get stuck in the bottom platform once your partner is above you because it's impossible for him to come down. You just need to rubber band yourself back up there and there you go. It's simple to do because of how deep the floor is, however when you get in the actual level, each platform seems to be more shallow than it was. I feel the struggle of trying to get myself up there and I feel like I wasn't doing something right because it's not what the game's asking me to do. Now you can get above the platform above your partner, you can do the method the other way round, and you do have a recall button at the cost of a couple of rings, so he can jump to your location of where you're positioned. But no room for yourself to get your partner's location since the Mega Drive's controller's limited to 3 buttons. One for recalling your partner, one for holding your partner's position, and one for jumping. But that was fine. Until you're spiralling out of control when you stop moving all over the place. At times folks, sometimes the game can be uncontrollable because of the tether mechanics. With your partner getting stuck on walls or get pulled back like a rubber band, which for the most of the time it gets under my skin because of how uncontrollable it can get. This also brings up about the level design, and there's barely any threats in these levels. Yeah, you run into a few enemies here and there, so really the real enemy in this game is getting your partner under control and flying in the air all over the place. I also noticed that there are no spikes in this game. Well, maybe the struggle of getting over the spikes are a pain in the arse in Sonic Crackers, which is why they removed them. Getting into the game's graphics, I think this game looks nice and colourful. I also like the day and night reflection on these levels, and I'm not sure if it was random considering the game picks the stages for you. The music is actually really good. I wouldn't put it in one of my favourites of all time, but I don't know why, but it makes me want to dance to some of them. Anyway, after the dancing number 1, we have the final encounter with Metal Sonic where you have to hit the X to do damage, I guess. So after collecting the Chaos Rings, you get the true final boss. After Metal Sonic escapes and damaged with Robotnik, he actually transforms into Metal Sonic Kai, which comes out of nowhere. But this thing really is no problem. So then we defeat Robotnik once again, and I guess we save the island? For some reason Sonic and Tails are here, probably wondering what they missed. Well, nothing in other words. That was very anticlimactic. We go through all this and it just happens. But overall, Knuckles Chaotix is probably one of the most average Sonic games I've ever played. Well, the game looks great, the game plays just fine, the music's great, and the special stages are really cool. But my main problem is that the tether mechanics can be really irritating at times. The levels are bland and boring and the bosses are pathetic. The only thing I could recommend to this game are Sonic fans, but good luck finding these on the cheap because this game's never been re-released since it came out. Even Christian Whitehead's willing to remake this game, but that's a very long time ago and I honestly do not see Sega re-releasing this game anytime soon. I mean, they have absolutely no faith in this in the first place, so why would they? I mean, granted, recent games have nostalgic callbacks to this game, but even now, still no sign of re-release. And so, on that note, I will see you next time in the Sonic universe, a sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog 3 that has been released over a decade later. Well, actually a decade and a half thinking about it. So next time we're going to look at Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Episode 1 and Episode 2. And yes, I'm going to be covering both of them, since I've got to combine them both together. I mean, hey, I looked at Sonic 3 with Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles combined together, so I'm going to do exactly the same for this one. So on the ending note, I want to know what you think of Knuckles Chaotix. Have you played it? Have you even planned it? Has this video convinced you or not convinced you? But let me know down below. And if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, or even share this to your friends or close family members, close friends or cousins, whatever. And so, on that note, taking this tasty sweet cup of tea, and I'll see you next time.